Hello friends, Uncle Marv here with another episode of the IT Business Podcast. And I just wanted to do a quick pre-show and let you know that I am here in Orlando at the Caribe Royale for Zero Trust World 2025, hosted by ThreatLocker. And I have to say thank you, first of all, to Danny at ThreatLocker for getting me in. And for those that do not know, Danny Jenkins is the founder and CEO, and he was on the show a while back and said, you should come to Zero Trust World. And I said, well, and he said, you're in. So here I am, and I actually have a podcast booth, and I'm here in the Solutions Pavilion. So I'm back up against the wall across from the food and drinks, and right next to a vendor I don't know that I'll have to introduce myself to later. And doing what we normally do at conferences, I will be interviewing both people from the event here at ThreatLocker, and I'll be finding some MSPs that I know and hopefully meet some new ones. And we'll talk all things cybersecurity and stuff. For those of you that do not know, Zero Trust World is a conference that is really dedicated not just to ThreatLocker, but cybersecurity in general. It's for IT professionals, CISOs, CEOs, cybersecurity experts, and we talk about a bunch of stuff here. Coming up on the program, if you're not here, some of the people that are actually speaking, Reggie Fils-Aime, who is former president and COO of Nintendo America. Of course, Danny Jenkins will be speaking. Trina Ford, who is the CISO of iHeartMedia. Chase Cunningham, who is known as Dr. Zero Trust. And Hector Monzador and Chris Tarbell, cybersecurity experts. So it's going to be a good event here. It's actually 3 days, and I'm going to be here for 2 of the 3. I got in last night. I'll be here today and tomorrow doing some of these interviews and then heading out. I don't know if I get to make it to some of the sessions. I'm going to try to, because I hear that the sessions are pretty good. They actually have some hands-on training, and they really teach you about things like rubber duckies and pineapples and how you really should be protecting your customers and letting them know all the threats that are out there. So we'll see. So that's going to do it. I will be here doing the interviews, so I don't know what order they're going to be in, and these are not going to be live streamed. So even though we are here, I do have to say behind me, I've got the banner that is promoting ASCII. I'm a media member for them for the year. Of course, I have to say thank you to ThreatLocker for having me here, and I do have internet powered by Rhythms. They are my internet sponsor here, so we'll see how that goes. The reason we're not live streaming on Rhythms right now is because apparently a bunch of towers are down or something like that. So I'm not getting a good internet connection with Rhythms right now, but none of the internets are actually doing well. But those are the people that I'll be pimping throughout the event here, and look forward to having you follow along with me. That's it. So we'll see ya. Holla. Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the IT Business Podcast. We are recording live from Orlando, Florida at Zero Trust World 2025, and I am here joined by a special projects engineer, Kieran Heumann, and we're going to have fun talking about this topic. So, Kieran, thank you much for joining the show.
Of course, thank you very much for having me.
So, I guess the first question is people are going to really ask is, what is a special project engineer at ThreatLocker?
Yeah, so at ThreatLocker, special projects engineer, we work closely with Danny, the CEO. He has a ton of fantastic ideas, super smart guy, but with having so many great ideas, he needs someone to research them, look into them a little further, see how doable they are, and then come up with an action plan.
He's like, I got an idea, you make it work.
Pretty much. And then we then help implement it with developers and work with a ton of different teams.
Okay. So have you worked with all of the products when it comes to like the application listing, the rings, fencing and all of that stuff, or are these special projects?
Everything can absolutely be something like just one of the products. Like some of the new products we did some of the initial research for, not all of them, but we help with that. And then there are definitely some special projects that we work on.
All right. So when we were introduced, the term that got thrown out to me by the, I don't want to say handler, that's probably not the right way to call her, but the person that helped set this up, Rubber Duckies. And I know that we've heard the term Rubber Duckies all the time. Some techs know what they are. I kind of know what it is, but describe that for us in a little more detail.
Yeah, so a Rubber Ducky, I actually have it here in my hand. Just looks like a regular USB, nondescript. And essentially what it is you plug it in and it acts like a keyboard. So, might not sound too bad, it's a keyboard. That's fine. Well, my lab will actually show you some of the dangers that it can do. Data exfiltration. One of the scripts we're going to be doing is disabling Windows Defender. You can even do some cookie stealing with it, and we'll touch a bit more on that later. But there's a lot of damage that you can do with just a keyboard, so it's something that people really need to keep in mind.
Now, it looks like a flash drive. Mm-hmm. You plug it in, it becomes a keyboard, so I have to assume that it's wireless or Bluetooth?
So it itself won't connect to the internet, but what you can do is tell it to open PowerShell and then connect to the internet with that. And that's why it is really important to not allow PowerShell to just have full access to the internet.
Interesting. So you get somebody to plug it in, because I'm assuming they don't just let you walk up and plug it in, but you get somebody to get it plugged into a laptop. It calls home, I guess?
Yeah, you can have it do anything. You can have it call a remote GitHub repository. So that's one of the labs that I do. My one will just print out ThreatLocker. It's totally innocent. I can change that tomorrow. That same script, as long as I have access to that GitHub repository, I can have it run whatever I want, download whatever I want, do whatever I want. So that's a lot of the danger.
Interesting. And I assume it's unnoticeable to the user at all. It just runs in the background, and can they transfer files back and forth using it as a flash drive while the Rubber Ducky is in action?
So that you can transfer files with it when it's not in action, it will pop up on the screen if you allow it to. So if you just have it open up Notepad and then start typing in Notepad or in PowerShell, it will be up for the user to see. But what you can do, and we do show this in the lab as well, is you can have PowerShell open in a hidden window. So all you do is you run a command to open up PowerShell with the script you want and tell it to hide that window. So the user will just plug in a flash driver, someone walks by, maybe they're distracted, they don't even notice the 2 seconds that it's on the screen, nothing else they see.
Interesting. So I guess the next question is going to be, is ThreatLocker finding a way to combat the Rubber Ducky?
Yeah, so while we don't stop keyboard devices, and that's all it looks like to the computer, we don't stop that. What we can stop is what it does. So like I spoke about earlier, how the Rubber Ducky doesn't call home, it will call PowerShell to then connect to the internet. What we can do is block PowerShell. Or what we can do is some of the commands, command prompt will open PowerShell, or it will run malware, or something like that. We can stop command prompt from interacting with other applications. We can stop command prompt and PowerShell from reaching the internet. So even if it downloads all your files, it copies them over, it's not going to data exfiltrate and steal all of your data.
All right, so the ring fencing is really what's key there, along with the application whitelisting and stuff. So that's pretty interesting. So I guess those are some of the great examples of why ThreatLocker is critical in an environment. What other things like a Rubber Ducky would it combat?
Well, there's a ton of hacking tools out there that you can really do so much with. Network control.
See, I guess the question, I'm not a hacker by nature, and I'm not like a lot of people where I'll go try to figure stuff out and dig in the dark web. So in my mind, I'm thinking, what else is there?
Yeah, there's Wi-Fi Pineapple. We're doing a little demonstration with that where it will imitate your Wi-Fi and steal your credentials. There's lots of different hacking tools, and OMG cable, where it's kind of like a rubber ducky, but actually a USB, charging cable. So you plug it into your phone, your laptop, whatever, and it can run whatever it wants.
So I saw that at, what show was it? It was on a show like either CSI or Criminal Minds or something like that, where people were at an airport and plugging their stuff into a charging cube, and that's how things were happening. So is that the type of thing that...
Yes, okay. And for those, you should absolutely not plug anything in that you don't know what it is. It should be your cable, your outlet, nothing like that. You can get data blockers, so that way you only allow power to come through. If you're ever, you shouldn't use a random cable, but if you are going to, it is imperative that you use a data blocker.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just giving them full access.
Okay. So my mind's going in another place right now because I'm sitting here thinking you probably have the joy of sitting around in your labs trying to figure out ways to break ThreatLocker, right?
We've done some of that. We've tried to do some of that.
Okay. You didn't hear that here, folks. ThreatLocker has not been broken by these guys.
No, we're always coming up with improvements. Even if it's not something that is broken, it could be something that can be improved or added. In my team, we come up with some cool community policies.
Right.
And a community policy is basically, here's the product. We're not editing the product, but we're just giving you new ways to use it that you could have done already, but we're just giving it to you easy. And one of them is to block cookie stealing. So your cookie file, it's super important, and it can essentially, if someone gets access to that, they can imitate you for a lot of logins, bypassing MFA and everything. And with that, we block so that only Chrome has access to Chrome's cookies. Edge has access to Edge cookies. The user doesn't have access, and other programs don't have access. Because there's no real need for Firefox to access your Chrome cookies.
Right. So I've been in a habit, and I've got one client in particular where I just allowed it to block all of the Chrome extensions. And I think I've only had one person ever ask, hey, why isn't this running? So is that kind of what we're talking about, where all those browser extensions are just automatically connecting and downloading and all that stuff? So are those the cookies we're talking about, or are there other cookies on a system we need to worry about?
So that's other cookies. It's actually a file on your computer. But good thing that you mentioned the extensions. Those are important. One of the ways to steal cookies is with the browser extension that I show. So definitely make sure to block browser extensions that are not needed. Only allow those that are needed.
Right.
But no, the cookie file, it really is just a file on your computer. We have it listed in the policy on where to find it. And really, you open it up. It is just plain text. You copy the code. You paste the code. You're in.
Okay, interesting. All right, so you're doing how many labs here?
I'm doing 4 of the labs.
4 of the labs.
Yes.
And are they all the same, or are you doing 4 different labs?
2 will be the same, and then so it's 3 unique labs.
Okay.
It's going to be busy.
All right, so one's a rubber ducky. Is one a pineapple?
No, so I'm doing a general rubber ducky, just kind of like an introductory to it. Then I'm doing an advanced rubber ducky, and then I'm doing the advanced cookie stealing.
Nice. I need to rearrange my schedule so I can get to those. So
they filled up quickly.
all right. So how long you been doing this?
So I've been in cybersecurity for a couple years now. I have a master's in cybersecurity and privacy from UCF, and then I've
Go Knights.
John. And then I've been with ThreatLocker for about 8 months now.
Okay. So you're in the honeymoon phase. You're happy. You're all excited, and looking to go break some things.
Yeah, it's really good though. It's not just a honeymoon phase with ThreatLocker, because there's been people here. We're a new company, 2017, we were founded, but there's people that have been here for years and they're still loving it, so I'm looking forward for more.
Yep, I talked to Danny a while back on the show, and I'm going to hopefully talk to him while I'm here, and he just seems like he started yesterday with it.
Yeah, I work with Danny a lot, and he makes it amazing. Super smart guy. He sits there, actually works through the problems, listens. Definitely makes working at ThreatLocker a joy.
All right. Well, Kieran, thank you for stopping by, and thank you for giving me stuff I got to now go think about doing. So nice to have you, and charge on.
Thank you.
That's going to do it, folks, and I'll be back with more later from Zero Trust World in Orlando. Hello, friends. Uncle Marv here with another episode of the IT Business Podcast. And if you're watching the video, you can tell I'm not in the usual studio. We are here in Orlando at Zero Trust World. My first time here because I am now a ThreatLocker person, if you didn't know. So we're going to be doing a lot of interviews here. I'm joined right now by Rob Allen, the Chief Product Officer at ThreatLocker. So, Rob, how are you?
I'm very well, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for coming over. And let's just start, I guess, with your history, because I know that you joined ThreatLocker in 2021, but you were an MSP before.
I was an MSP for more years than I care to remember. I was an MSP for 18 years back home in Ireland.
Okay.
Great experience. Just great grounding, I suppose, in IT, because
Right.
it was a little bit of everything that I got to play with, to experiment with, to learn with. It was actually when I worked for the MSP was when I first met Danny, our CEO, probably 15 years ago.
Wow.
And the MSP I worked for at the time, we were one of his first customers in a previous company that he set up.
Interesting. So let me ask this, because you're here now in the U.S., but how different was it being an MSP in Ireland as opposed to what you see here in the U.S.?
Oh, now that's a really difficult question, and it's one that's going to be quite tricky to answer without offending anyone. What I will say is I love the MSP community here in the US. I'm privileged that I get to go to a lot of events. I get to speak to a lot of both ThreatLocker customers and non-ThreatLocker customers. I think there's an incredible community here in the US. There is to some extent back home, but nowhere near on the same level. There's so many opportunities to meet people, to speak to people, to learn, to teach. It is much more of a sense of a community here in the US than it is back home. I also love it's probably a much deeper American thing. I love the get up and go nature, the yes, let's do this attitude that a lot of US MSPs have. That's probably a little bit more reserved back home, where you
Really?
yeah, very much so. So like a lot of US customers are like, love your product, love what you do, we're going to get this out, we're the experts, we're going to tell our customers this is what they need, and if they don't need it, they can go and find another MSP. And that's a brilliant approach. I've seen far too many cases where, and look, from my own background, I know the way we used to do things was we'd sign up for a new service, we'd have a new tool, and we'd be, okay, now we need to go and sell it to our customers. So we'd have to go to each one of our 200 customers all around the country. We'd have to talk to them, we'd have to convince them, we'd have to explain it to them, we'd have to quote them, we'd have to get them to approve it. And even if we did a really good job, we might have 40%, 50% of our customers who'd actually sign up for the thing. And it's a hell of a lot of legwork, it's a hell of a lot of hard work and man hours that goes into that. Whereas if you just say, look, I'm the expert, you need this thing, okay, I'm telling you what you have to do, and if you don't want to do it, go and find somebody else. Go and find someone else to do it. You're going to get 100% sign up of your customers, or those customers who don't want the thing, if particularly it's a security tool, are probably customers that you don't want anyway, because the customers who say no to more security, we both know are the very ones who are going to get hit in a cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
incident.
And there are times now when I approach a lot of stuff. For instance, when I implemented ThreatLocker at the beginning of last year, I didn't tell half my clients. It just got added to the stack.
Yeah.
But
that's not really a thing back home. Even the idea of a stack back home is not really. Yeah, you've got products. Yeah, you've got things you sell, but there's not really this concept of it. This is our stack, and you're getting it, whether you like it or not.
Wow. So is the selling mindset that each thing is like an a la carte, really? Is it,
Very
we'll
much
sell
so.
you the service, we'll sell you remote access, we'll sell you cybersecurity, all of that is a la carte, so nothing, no all-in-one bundle.
Very few.
Wow.
No, it's changing. But the way I'd put it is that, and again, this is a bit where I don't want to offend anybody back home, but I very much
We
think-
offend people all the time.
Oh, that's
here.
fine. Okay, well, then I'm in a safe space, so let's offend away. But I feel that MSPs in Ireland and Europe are probably 5 to 10 years behind US MSPs. So I mean, even the idea of an MSP, like it wasn't a thing back home until probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. Prior to that was just we're an IT company. It's not we're an MSP. There's no managed involved. So even to get to that, we're probably somewhere between 5 and 10 years behind the US in the approach and the thinking. So I'd say it's probably still that way. It's moving in the right direction. So they are getting there. It's just a little bit more slowly. I mean, there's a lot of fears. There's a lot of race to the bottom price-wise. You know what I mean? Like I know a lot of MSPs who've got a price per seat here. This is what you're paying. It's $100 a seat or $150 or $200 a seat or whatever the case may be. A lot of MSPs back home, we can't do that. Because somebody else is going to do it cheaper than us. So it is definitely a concern back home, and it's something that's
Well,
very
it's
welcome here.
still a concern here. I'm in an area where I get undercut all the time, so I'm used to that, but I just stand my ground and say, look, this is what I'm going to do because this is the level of support and security that you need. So
Absolutely. You have to do what you best for your customers. And again, if they don't agree with you on that, if they don't believe you, then realistically, who's the expert?
Right.
Obviously we all respect our customers, but like, who are you to say that I don't need this security or I don't need this thing when I, as the expert, am recommending that you should have it?
So let me ask you this now.
I just called myself an expert, and I didn't mean to call myself an expert.
Listen, in all the literature I saw,
the MSP, as the expert.
in all the literature I saw, you were listed as a cybersecurity expert. So
that's definitely
that's what you are. And the camera's off here, so let me see if we can't get it. Oh, it zoomed in on you. Trying to get it out to both of us here. Yeah, this is this is a new day, folks.
It really likes me.
There you go. Well, we'll figure it out.
There we go.
So what was it then that brought you from the MSP into ThreatLocker? Because I assume a lot of it is you love cybersecurity, right?
There's two answers to that question.
Okay.
There's a really short answer and there's quite a long answer. The really short answer is Danny. So Danny's our CEO, as I said. I met him probably 15 years ago in one of his previous enterprises and was always extremely impressed at how clever he was, how sharp he was. He built 2 products completely from scratch by himself. So the guy was always really clever. So when Danny came knocking nearly 5 years ago now and said, hey, I've got this thing, it's going really well, I'd like you to be involved. My inclination was probably to say yeah. So the short answer is Danny.
Okay.
The slightly longer answer is that at that stage, the company that I worked for, the MSP we worked for, we had customers who were getting hit in cyber attacks, not quite weekly, but definitely monthly. So at least once a month, we had a customer who was getting hit in a cyber attack, and I always felt a sense of responsibility. Is there something I could have done better that meant this customer of mine didn't have this happen to them? And there's always something, realistically, but what I realized was that what we were doing, which was your traditional approach, it was antivirus, it was making sure things were patched, that were up to date, that they'd firewalls, all these things, that wasn't working. People were still getting hit, and probably the most interesting incident that took place was actually about a week before I joined ThreatLocker. I decided to join ThreatLocker, and the MSP had a customer who got hit as part of a ransomware attack. I got a call at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning, and as an MSP, if you get a call at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning,
That's not good at all.
probably something's going on. But this customer rang and he said, look, we can't get into our systems, we can't get into our files, can you have a look? So I logged in, I found out pretty quickly what was going on, managed to get it shut down and isolated relatively quickly. So they lost 2 or 3 servers that we were able to restore from a backup. That wasn't the big part of it, or the eye-opening part of it. The eye-opening part of it was the ransom note that had been left behind. Wasn't your typical pay us Bitcoin, we'll give you a decryption key. It was, we have stolen 1.8 terabytes of your data. We've uploaded it to this location, and if you don't pay us by this date at this time, we're going to release your information on the dark web. Now, that's a really common tactic now, the double extortion. It's a really common, I mean, basically every ransomware attack will have a degree of that involved, because, again, most organizations, generally speaking, can get back up and running after a ransomware attack, but can you get back up and running from the reputational damage of all of your customer information being released on the dark web? Maybe not so much. But that was the first time that I'd seen that, and that was a game changer as far as I was concerned. So it's not just a recovery operation, it's not just get them back up and running from a backup, because we was always able to do that relatively easily. But their information being in somebody else's hands was a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. That is scary. So I've had one customer hit twice.
Oh, really?
With ransomware that we were able to stop mid-ransomware. We were able to detect files being encrypted fairly early in this thing. So
the problem is the encryption is probably happening after the exfiltration has taken place.
Right.
That's the thing.
But we were able
that's why a strategy of we'll detect ransomware running is one that is doomed to fail. Because if your strategy is to wait for something bad to run and then catch it, it's too late. Your data's already out there. It's probably for sale on the dark web.
Yeah, but that was back in the early days. So I don't know, maybe 2015 or 2016. So it wasn't as bad back then.
Yes.
Have not had a recent exposure.
That's because you're a ThreatLocker customer now.
Well, now we are.
But interestingly, so the MSP that I used to work for, the CEO is actually here today. They came as one of our guests. So as I said, at the time when I left, they were dealing with probably one ransomware attack a month that they had to clean up.
That
as far as I'm aware,
that seems incredible.
Oh no, it's not really. And so I'll explain. So they had, it was an MSP, but they were also a software company. Okay, so they had this piece of software that they basically sold was to legal firms around the country. Now, the software required 2 things in order for it to work properly. The first thing the software required was local admin. So the user had to be a local administrator on the machine that it was running on.
Hate that.
So every single one of the 2,000 plus machines that we managed around the country, basically who were running that software, the user was a local administrator. So number 1, really bad idea. Number 2, really bad idea was that they had, the software used macros in Word to generate generate documents from templates. So the second thing that we had to do when we were setting up a new computer was to enable macros in Word. So local admin and macros enabled. So 2 big no-nos, but they had to be done. There was no way around it for these guys because they needed their software to work. Now, when I moved from the MSP to ThreatLocker, one of the first things I did was I got ThreatLocker into the MSP. So they deployed it, they protected all the machines using it. The user needing to be a local admin problem we solved by using ThreatLocker's elevation control. So we said, right, this software is now elevatable. So the user, you can take away those local admin rights. That software will still be able to run as a local admin. And we solved the problem of the macros being a danger by ring fencing Office. So saying, look, Office can run, it can run macros if needs be, but we're going to stop Office from interacting with PowerShell and Command Prompt and C script and RegServe and all of those weaponizable Windows applications. So we effectively nullified the risk that was inherent in their practice by implementing ThreatLocker. Plus, obviously, the fact that default deny and allow listing means that ransomware can't run. So since, and as far as I'm aware, since they got ThreatLocker, they have not had another ransomware incident for the ThreatLocker customer.
Yeah, that has been a game changer for me because I have a couple of clients where we co-manage, and one is okay. There's a tech in-house that's pretty decent, a desktop tech, but has to have local admin rights to do their stuff. And then I've got a customer where it's I call him AJ,
Okay.
because it's an admin,
Yeah.
but not a technical
Yeah.
person, and they believe they have to have admin rights everywhere, and they fight and fight. And so we put in ThreatLocker,
Yes.
and said, yeah, you can be an admin.
Yeah.
And he would go to install software, and he's like, well, why isn't this running? I said, even admins have to have permission to run stuff. So that changed
Yeah.
that behavior real quick, and
Yeah.
it just made it so much nicer to deal with.
Absolutely.
So fantastic. Well, Rob, too bad I can't ask you about any of the announcements coming up, because I'm a little excited.
I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate, and I really don't want to kill you.
But thank you for stopping by and hanging out here. And for those of you wondering, I'm in the Solutions Pavilion, where everybody eats and all the other vendors are. So it's a little different than being on Media Row, but we're here. And I want to thank Rob. And I also have to thank Danny, because Danny's the one that got me in here to hang out and be at this conference. So, Rob, it was nice to meet you. And thank you for hanging out.
so much.
And enjoy the show.